This is an alternate timeline, and everything that follows hinges on one decision Miami could not undo. In 1981, Howard Schnellenberger walks away from Miami, not because he lost, not because he failed, but because the institution refused to surrender control. That decision didn't just change Miami, it reshaped governance, realignment, and power across college football for 40 years. This is not about wins or losses. This is about what happens when an institution chooses structure over identity, but still loses both. Before any chronology, here's why this mattered beyond Coral Gables. Miami in the early 1980s wasn't just a program. It was a stress test for how much autonomy a university was willing to grant football leadership. When that test failed, it sent a message to every administrator, conference office, and media partner watching. If Miami wouldn't centralize power around a builder, no one was safe assuming they could. Nationally, this reframed football not as a coaching problem, but as a governance problem. The cause of this was not personality, it was authority. Schnellenberger demanded control over recruiting geography, direct booster access, scheduling leverage beyond conference politics. Miami's response wasn't resistance, it was dilution. Committees, shared oversight, image management. And so Schnellenberger left, not angrily, but as a final endgame. From that moment forward, Miami football as an institution stopped being a unified actor. It became a set of approvals. Miami's institutional response was the hire that looked reasonable on paper, but hollow everywhere else. Ted Marchibroda, NFL coordinator, modern concepts, calm demeanor. This was not incompetence. This was misalignment. Marchibroda required systems Miami did not have, such as recruiting infrastructure in South Florida, booster tolerance, cultural edge. The national media reaction was immediate and uniform. This doesn't feel like Miami. Not outrage, but recognition. And within one season, the name Schnellenberger disappears from Miami coverage entirely. Not out of spite, but because the story is no longer about a man. It's about administrative unreliability. But Schnellenberger does not vanish. He ends up taking another job, somewhere with a stable administration, willingness to centralize power, and he ends up at BYU. In the 1980s, BYU is a member of the WAC, and that matters because Schnellenberger doesn't change BYU's identity, he strengthens its structure. Recruiting expands nationally. Scheduling grows aggressive. The WAC is stretched beyond design limits. BYU becomes a national actor trapped in a regional container, and everyone sees the mismatch. And wait, this is where it breaks. Not in Miami, at the system. BYU's rise inside the WAC forces conference leadership to confront something they never planned for. What happens when one institution outgrows the governance built to contain it? The answer is fragmentation. By the early 90s, BYU is courted not because of wins, but because it fits centralized power models. They land in the Big Ten. Geography breaks. Precedent is set. And every conference in America quietly rewrites its long-term assumptions. Miami, meanwhile, does not collapse. It hollows. Without centralized authority, recruiting becomes cautious, booster engagement becomes regulated, identity becomes historical rather than functional. When Miami eventually joins the ACC, it's not ambition, it's containment. The institution chooses predictability over volatility, and in doing so exits the national power conversation permanently. Miami becomes administratively sound and strategically irrelevant. From here, consequences escalate outward. BYU's migration accelerates playoff logic. The Big Ten and SEC consolidate power earlier. The Pac-10 survives only by accepting a cap ceiling. NIL becomes explicit because structure already exists to absorb it. Player unionization follows contracts, not protests. College football stops pretending chaos is accidental. It becomes governed. And the institutions that thrive are the ones that learned the lesson Miami refused. Power must be owned, not shared. So what is Miami's legacy here? Not tragedy, not redemption. Miami proves something uncomfortable, that an institution can survive by emptying itself of danger, and that college football, once fully structured, no longer has room for programs that require disorder to matter. Was Miami ahead of its time or already obsolete? That answer depends on what college football becomes next, and that part is still unresolved. And if you're still here, you're not watching for highlights, you're watching for consequences. If you think Miami's decision was inevitable, say why. If you think it was avoidable, point to the moment it could have gone differently. And if you want more alternate histories that follow institutions, incentives, and power instead of box scores, that's what this channel does. So like the video, subscribe, and stay in the timeline. Because in college football, the most important plays usually happen off the field.